Hello, and welcome to Online with SFFP. I'm Kathy Rose O'Regan, the Executive Director of San Francisco Film Preserve. SFFP is dedicated to highlighting our shared film heritage through restoration, preservation, access, and advocacy. You can learn all about us at filmpreserve.org and on social media at SF Film Preserve. And I do recommend following us as we have some exceptionally exciting announcements coming up very, very soon. SFFP is dedicated to advocating for the field of moving image preservation, which is why we initiated this free online series in February of 2025. Today's presentation is the 15th installment in a series that has covered everything from lost Indian cinema to early German stuntmen to the roots of Guatemalan film heritage, and a whole lot more. You can watch all past editions of Online with SFFP on our website and YouTube channel. We are really delighted to be hosting today's event on this very special day, Earth Day 2026, because this presentation speaks to the way moving images were intrinsic to the founding of Earth Day in 1970. Today's presenter is Joanna Black, Senior Archivist at the William E. Colby Memorial Library at the Sierra Club's national offices in Oakland, California. In that role, Joanna oversees both analog and digital archival collections, including film, photographs, and born digital media. Joanna has worked in archives for over 20 years, serving in the past as the Director of Archives and Special Collections at the GLBT Historical Society in San Francisco and the Manuscripts Processing Assistant at the Bancroft Library at UC Berkeley. She holds a BA in creative writing from San Francisco State University and a master's degree from UCLA in library and information science with a specialization in archival studies. Today's talk will be followed by a Q&A, so if you have any questions at all, please just pop them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. So without further ado, I would like to invite Joanna Black to the screen for her presentation.
Well, happy Earth Day, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Joanna Black. I'm the Senior Archivist at the William E. Colby Memorial Library at the Sierra Club's national headquarters in Oakland, California, which sits on the stolen land of the Ohlone people. Oops. I am a generalist or solo archivist, not a moving image archivist or historian. So what I will be discussing today will be from the perspective of an archivist working in a small specialized environmental library based on my experiences managing these films. I won't be getting into the nuts and bolts of archiving these films for the sake of time, but you're welcome to ask me about that in the Q&A section if you're interested. In honor of Earth Day, I will be taking you on a journey through some of the Sierra Club's most pivotal films, produced just a few years before the first Earth Day in 1970. To begin, I'll give you a brief outline of the Sierra Club and the Colby Library, the Sierra Club Film Program, and how these films helped shape modern conservation efforts in the U.S. Although there are numerous noteworthy films produced by the Sierra Club over the years that could be discussed, I will focus on just three from the 1960s that I believe had a real impact on public opinion towards environmental issues. I'll be showing you some clips from each of the three films to help illustrate their overall themes, moods, and messages. The films are available online through the Colby Library's digital collections page, which I will link out to at the end of this presentation. I encourage you to view these films for yourselves and reflect on how the messages they convey are still relevant today. Perhaps they may even inspire you or activate you to become interested in joining your local conservation, environmental, or environmental justice movements. So let's get started. So brief history about the Sierra Club. It was founded in 1892 in San Francisco and is an environmental or green organization. Its mission today is to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of the earth, to practice and promote the responsible use of the earth's ecosystems and resources, to educate and enlist humanity to protect and restore the quality of the natural and human environment, and to use all lawful means to carry out these objectives. Today, the Sierra Club has millions of members and supporters who defend everyone's right to a healthy world. It includes over 60 regional chapters and groups spread out across the US, tackling issues around conservation, the environment, and people. When it was founded 134 years ago in San Francisco, it focused primarily on the Sierra Nevada and California, but today its work spans across all 50 states and Puerto Rico. Since the founding of the Sierra Club, there has always been a library collection in its offices. The collection began primarily with books, periodicals, and photographs about mountaineering in the Sierra Nevada, which was the region the club was focused in on protecting in its early days. Those topics were paramount to the interests of the members at the time and were donated and traded by the club's earliest members, as there were no employees at the club during that time. As the club expanded its focus over those early years to include outdoor recreation in addition to conservation outside of California, so too did the library's collections expand to cover topics like hiking, mountain climbing, skiing, and rafting. It also included broader conservation topics from places like the Everglades, the Grand Canyon, and the Cascades. Today, the Colby Library's collection scope includes materials about the Sierra Club's national work, not the chapter work. It also contains Sierra Club-centric collections, things that are by the Sierra Club, about the Sierra Club, reference or have historical connections to the Sierra Club. Items in our collections include books like non-mountaineering topics, natural history, species identification, outdoor recreation, ecology, and environmental studies. We also have publications by the Sierra Club, including the Sierra Club Bulletin, or what it's called today, Sierra Magazine. We have reports and maps, promotional materials, exhibit format series books, and books published under the former Sierra Club publishing arm called Sierra Club Books. We also hold pictorial collections like photographic prints, photo albums, slides. We have graphics like posters, placards, banners, club artifacts and ephemera, fine art collections like paintings, prints, and photography. We have audiovisual materials like radio programs, public service announcements, and educational films. The Colby Library is a special Sierra Club-centric collection, but it is worth noting that the Sierra Club's official archives, where the non-active working papers of the club reside, is actually at UC Berkeley's Bancroft Library. The library works in partnership with the Bancroft, and we share resources around club materials like the Sierra Club films. Since its founding in 1892, the Sierra Club was searching for ways to better engage the American public on issues negatively impacting wilderness and wild places, especially in the wake of post-war development in the name of progress. At that time, most people found out about the Sierra Club through wilderness outings, trips to places like Yosemite, or various sections like the mountaineering section or local walk section. Friends would tell friends, people would apply for a club membership, and the club steadily expanded. Another way people learned about what the Sierra Club was doing was through the Sierra Club Bulletin, which today is published under the name Sierra. This magazine was and still is the club's main publication, where issues important to club members get highlighted, in addition to news and announcements from club leadership. But word of mouth and club publications could only grow the organization so much. Enter David Brower, a world-class mountaineer, book publisher, editor, and all-around avid outdoors person, already quite an active member in the Sierra Club and, starting in 1952, the Sierra Club's first executive director. Brower was known for finding creative ways to bring environmental issues into the living rooms of everyday Americans and was considered by many to be a visionary in this regard. During his tenure as Sierra Club Executive Director, which lasted until 1969, Brower increased club membership tenfold, from 7,000 members to 70,000 members, becoming the nation's leading environmental membership organization. He recognized that everyday people would care about the environment if they could, in some way, experience the awe that these wild places inspire. If he could somehow bring these places to the people, then the environmental movement would stand a chance at success. Brower also understood the power of storytelling, showing the public the beauty of the natural world, even if they themselves could not visit these places physically. Aside from the seminal coffee table book series that he spearheaded, the Sierra Club exhibit format series books, which featured large color photos and text about threatened places like Glen Canyon on the Colorado River, Brower also saw that film was the future. Thus began Sierra Club Productions, an arm of the club dedicated to producing compelling and beautifully shot conservation films. This marked the first time in the club's history where films were used as an intentional tool to recruit everyday supporters of the environment, and also encourage citizens to actively engage with their government around environmental issues that impacted them. Films were an accessible yet immersive way to bring people into the areas being impacted, to activate them politically, to take part in the democratic process, voice their concerns over public projects, and give power to the people. While Sierra Club produced many 16mm conservation films in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, focusing on a range of environmental topics, today I will focus on just three that not only shaped wilderness conservation, but helped popularize the environmental movement that would eventually establish Earth Day just a few years later. The films I will be highlighting are The Grand Canyon, Living River, Living Canyon, produced in 1967, The Redwoods, produced in 1968, and An Island in Time, The Point Reyes National Seashore, produced in 1969. These three films, along with numerous other 16mm films from that area, were digitized in 2011, 7 years before I was hired as the Sierra Club's first archivist. We still hold the original 16mm films and film elements in a temperature-controlled offsite storage. When digitized, the films were in various stages of degradation, and so the footage you will see will vary in quality. One note about the clips you'll see here today. In order to show them during this presentation, the digital quality of the video is not the best. That's the payoff for embedding them into a presentation, which is pretty cool in and of itself. But the films were actually digitized in very high quality with lots of preserved visual information and consequently very large files. Those are available to library patrons upon request, but for the purposes of access, you will be viewing compressed lower resolution files today. Sorry, no HD here. The Grand Canyon, produced in 1967. In the 1960s, the Grand Canyon's integrity was threatened by the Bureau of Reclamation's proposal to build Bridge Canyon and Marble Gorge dams. Rather than remain on the defensive, the Sierra Club chose to mount a counteroffensive. It sponsored legislation that would enlarge the park to include the entire canyon and that would specifically prohibit any dams or diversions between Lee's Ferry, where the canyon starts, and Grand Wash Cliffs, where it ends. The Sierra Club launched a number of outreach efforts to stop this damming project, including feature stories in the Sierra Club Bulletin, as well as placing ads in the New York Times and other newspapers. The Sierra Club also produced this film, The Grand Canyon, Living River, Living Canyon, which not only spoke to the threat of the proposed dams, but revealed the unbelievable beauty of the Grand Canyon that the dams would destroy. Taking this beauty in front of people who would never likely visit in person is part of what this film is trying to do. The first clip pulls you into this wondrous place.
The canyon, like the human soul, is a universe. When you think of the Grand Canyon, what comes to your mind? Do you think of being in it? Of gliding by the great rock walls that mark off an immensity of space for the spirit to soar through? Do you think of this space punctuated by eroding buttes, lined by banded, crumpled gorges? Do you think of the widening of the space as seeps dissolve the limestone and tributaries wear away the old sandstone? And basic to all, do you think of the river as it deepens the canyon, gouging and scouring its way through hard, dark rock, transfigured by 2 billion years of heat and weight? Do you think of the water bearing the elements of life to each canyon garden? Do you think of the plants growing in the sand or in rock, delicately in a canyon that seems harsh, pointing up the subtle color of the rock? Do you think of the streams, here lucid, there turbid, feeding the gardens that in turn nourish the myriad insects, all providing for the birds and animals, freely moving, yet dependent on the river shore to live?
This film shows the vibrancy of the Grand Canyon ecosystem, fueled by the waters that have carved out its shape over millions of years. Its beauty, the film argues, should be conserved and respectfully enjoyed by people present and future, without the risk of dams destroying what has been building for so long. Natural beauty and unbridled adventure, the Grand Canyon is a true wonder of the world. This film lets that beauty speak for itself.
Sun, sky, and stone play with the water. There is magic in the shadow and the light. To explore, to be within and part of the wildness of this place, to begin to learn what it can tell, confirms the idea that some land should be left unimpaired. That all people might come and enjoy it for what it is. The national park idea.
In a 1980 order form listing the various Sierra Club films for rental, this description accompanies this title. The photography is superb, revealing a place that hardly anyone knows well enough. The film shows movingly and convincingly that the canyon is a universe in itself and that a living river is vital to keeping the canyon alive. The film makes it beautifully clear that a little 93-mile reservoir, far down though it might be in a mile-deep canyon, would be one of the greatest mistakes this nation could make. The 2 proposed Grand Canyon dams would destroy the spirit of everything this film has to say. With that spirit, the film leaves audiences with this message.
The dam builders will always be hypnotized by their desire to exploit the Colorado River and its gorge, to drain from the river the energy we have felt. Yet there are other ways of generating electric power. There is no other Grand Canyon, and the Grand Canyon's highest purpose is for it all to be protected for all people, forever. Can we afford to keep some land free of the contrivances of the world we made? Can we afford places where all we need is to learn to walk easily through the world we were made in? Can we afford to set aside national parks? Can we afford not to? Dams or people? You can help decide. And if you think some land should be left exalting its own life, if you think that somewhere a flower should be able to grow uncultivated, unplucked, perhaps even unseen, that a damselfly should remain resplendent. If you feel that clouds should not have to contend for space with smog, that a spring should be able to run free and pure, that a pond should be left to itself to support its own community, if you are pleased to see a stream glorifying a natural pavement, if you are content to enjoy a river shore leaving its design undisturbed, if you have ever felt that a wilderness river should be left dancing, alive and bringing life, if you have come even a little under the spell of this place, then the whole of this canyon we have discovered only a little of. This Grand Canyon is your Grand Canyon.
The outcome? Public pressure changed the course of the government's plans. Congress went on to expand the national park and prohibit dams anywhere within the Grand Canyon, making the Sierra Club's campaign a success. And now the Redwoods, produced in 1968. By the mid-20th century, almost all old-growth coastal redwood forests had been cut down for timber, with much of the forested land owned by lumber companies. Anyone who has visited a redwood grove knows the extraordinary splendor of their spirits, not to mention the habitats they provide wildlife, which is comparable to coral reefs. These trees take hundreds of years to mature and can live for over 2,000 years. So once they're cut down, they don't grow back in our lifetimes. The Sierra Club believed these magnificent trees should be federally protected. One of the ways they educated the public on this issue was through this film, The Redwoods, which also won the 1968 Academy Award for Best Short Documentary.
Long before man, long even before the first pre-humans, there were the Redwoods. One 100 million years ago, they flourished throughout the northern half of the world. The last great stand of Sequoia sempervirens survives in a narrow band of forest in the fog belt along the northern California coast. No other living thing in the world grows as tall. Few trees live to be as old. The Sequoia sempervirens, the enduring redwood, a living link to the age of dinosaurs.
The film reveals the mysterious awe that the coastal redwoods inspire as they seem to humbly stand for thousands of years in the misty forests of Northern California, the viewer almost peering into the past during pre-human times.
When my dad first settled here, there was hardly anyone around. Of course, everything was wild and virgin then. Well, you'd probably run into a black-tailed deer or a grizzly bear, maybe a mountain cat or two, but no other living soul. Hard to believe that now. It's hard to find a place where a person could go off by themselves and be all so faithful.
The film juxtaposes these beautiful images with the very real industrial noise, pollution, and sharp blades of logging, the destruction and disassociation from nature that humans have seemingly adopted for the sake of progress.
think John Muir said it right. He said, in timber, or as timber, the redwood is just too good to live. Back in the old days, a 300-foot tree, about 12 foot across, would take two men right around 3 days to fell because they used axes and crosscut saws. They called them barbed wire scratchers or misery whips. But that's no longer. Like today, a man can rip through a tree in about 1 hour. You know, I doubt that my dad ever dreamed that there'd be an end to these redwoods someday. It just seemed like there were too many trees for that, and then it just took too long to cut one down.
Here are some descriptions of the film. Among the Sierra Club's award-winning films, The Redwoods stands out. It received an Academy Award for Best Short Documentary in 1968. Although that award is richly deserved, there is another that the Sierra Club values even more highly: the creation of America's new Redwoods National Park. For the Redwoods was a major factor in helping build both the public and the congressional support, which has since made this creation possible. Another review says, a poetically filmed journey through one of nature's most beautiful and wonderful forest areas, with a soundtrack whose sensitivity matches the superb quality of photography. The Redwoods provides a conservation message for all ages and for all the ages.
I've loved these woods now for some 40 years, and like my dad and the others before me, have given little thought to the future. Soon the last of the great ridges will be gone. And if this happens, it'll be at least 1,000 years before we'll have woods like this again.
The outcome? Redwood National Park was created in 1968, only after one of the hardest campaigns the Sierra Club had ever fought. And it took another 10 years for a significant expansion to adequately protect the entire Redwood Creek watershed. And finally, An Island in Time, the Point Reyes National Seashore, produced in 1969. After World War II, land development in the Bay Area for commercial and residential uses started to skyrocket. From filling in the bay to create more land, to developing the area that is now the Marin Headlands, The areas that we know and love today for their natural beauty were hard-fought wins for conservationists and environmentalists. Point Reyes was also one of those places with its unique formations and ecosystems. This first clip touches on this element.
Scientists believe that the Point Reyes Peninsula has been moving northwestward through the ages and is still moving, a wanderer, an island in time. It is an island in botanical time also, where rare plants have been able to develop during periods of isolation. Among them, the bishop pine, propagated by fire, heat being necessary to open the cones and release the seeds.
This area of Northern California, just an hour or so north of San Francisco, is a truly unique place, full of wildlife, beaches and lagoons, migrating whales, and other wonderful nature. This film highlights the diversity of flora and fauna, as well as the potential outdoor recreation opportunities and historic landmarks that the land offers, illustrating the irreplaceable value of this region and making a strong argument for its long-term protection.
We can see the lighthouse station built in 1870. Between this point and Tomales Bay lies many a shipwreck. From the side, there appears to be a long slide. Shall we try it? Well, no. Let's go down the steps instead. The wonderful old light, sending out its beams for miles to guide the ships at sea. Near the lighthouse, an opening in the rock wall, a magic door to Wonderland. The first wonder, the frothy scallops of the sea's edge. Let's explore. What is between the wall and the sea? A painted cliff. The pigments, gray lichens, and scarlet algae. Natural gardens, unchanged by man.
Its close proximity to San Francisco and rich resources made it a valuable asset for industrial logging and commercial development, which clear-cutted forests and threatened the thriving coastal ecosystem.
On the ridge above is the Black Forest, 8,000 acres of Douglas fir trees. For generations, this forest stood untouched and uncoveted. But the demand for lumber of even inferior quality grew, and taxes on forested lands increased. This led to the sale of timber rights, and the cutting began. Instead of the wind in the evergreens, the whine of the chainsaw, the deer and the fox departed. Some of the trees were more than 5 feet across. Destruction all around. Instead of ducks and frogs in a marsh, logs on a mill pond, with a motorized log pusher. A modern sawmill operating to capacity. Had we waited too long? How many more of the stately trees would be cut into lumber? At the crucial moment, Congress saved them from total destruction by declaring Point Reyes a park.
The film's flow of beautiful footage, which charms the viewer, is starkly interrupted by images of logging and the threat of commercial development, invoking feelings of loss, anxiety, and anger, hopefully motivating people to insist on federal protection of this area.
Drake's Beach Estates. This brought us back from Wonderland. It was a sign of danger, great danger. We followed the sign to the cliff and looked down on the beach of the Sanderlings, the Godwits, the surf fishermen, and the children. Behind the dunes that border the beach, a realtor's stake, marking off lots for a subdivision. We feared the bulldozers would soon come, machines capable of cutting down these coastal hills quickly, cheaply, denuding them of buckeye, bay, and oak, destroying forever the fields of flowers, leaving the wildlife dispossessed.
A description of this film states, "The film shows the immense variety of our first national seashore on the Pacific coast. It calls attention to the fact that America's seashores have been badly neglected and left to poor regulated private development. The National Seashore System was designed to preserve some of the country's most scenic and scientifically important coastlands before the opportunity is gone. We need these areas for recreation and study. Tomorrow's Americans will need them even more."
What is on the rock below us? Sea lions, part of a large herd on Point Reyes. This must be the king of them all. See how majestically he sits on his rock. Look, on the ledge. A tufted puffin. His plumes are as golden as Alice's hair. We must be in Wonderland. Is there anything more here to photograph? A world of wonders. Look down. Birds. What kind of birds? California murres. About 5,000, they say. Here are some of the characters.
Outcome: the National Park Service established parts of Point Reyes as a national seashore in 1962, which was several years before the film was even produced. But it was the same year that the Sierra Club published an exhibit format series book on Point Reyes and featured numerous articles about the area in the Sierra Club Bulletin, really trying to make the public aware of this location. But the fight to protect the area didn't end in 1962 or when the film came out in 1969. Additional protected acres were added in 1976, but the area remains contentious. For decades, a land use conflict ensued for the future of dairy, cattle ranching, and wildlife management in the Point Reyes area. Last year, a settlement was reached to retire 12 ranching operations in exchange for compensation from the Nature Conservatory, which helps ensure that threatened, rare, and endangered species, including the tool elk, can continue to rebound after near extinction levels. As David Brower said, conservationists have to win again and again and again. The enemy only has to win once. This is true especially today as we witness many of this nation's environmental wins being eradicated with the flick of a pen. On today's Earth Day, while we reminisce and applaud the hard-fought wins fueled by the activism and dedication of those who came before us, we must also remember that we are the ones who continue this fight again and again and again in defense of this planet. From each of the film's initial releases in 16mm over half a century ago, to the ongoing preservation onto VHS and eventually digital formats, the Sierra Club films continue to inspire environmentalists across the world. If you would like to view any of these films and explore other digital collections and resources, please visit the Colby Library's digital collections page at the QR code or the URL there. You can also reach out to me directly through my email, joanna.black@sierraclub.org, or the library generally at colby.library@sierraclub.org. Please also visit our Colby Library homepage, which has other resources, including our oral history collections. And with that, I just want to say Happy Earth Day to everyone. And if you can, please get outside and enjoy some of those outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Oh, I will say some of that is very hard to watch. I'm sure you can tell from my accent that I'm not born in California, but I consider myself a proud Californian after almost 2 decades here. And the thought of, subdivisions out in Point Reyes, and watching those lumber mills is difficult. It's still very difficult to think of such loss. But in these current times, to see the hopefulness of what can be achieved with, collective action, it's incredibly powerful. So really, really thank you. We have time for a bit of a discussion. So if anyone in attendance has a question, please just pop it in the Q&A and we will address all the questions we can. But as always, I have many questions. I'm really interested to know how these films were accessed initially in the 60s and 70s. So were they circulated for rentals? I mean, what was the kind of the access path for your average American?
Yeah, so as far as I'm able to kind of piece together through the clues of the archives, they were sent out to classrooms, chapters or different groups would hold meetings and kind of show the film there. So they were sort of loaned out in that regard. Um, Even today, that's how these films still gets, well, perhaps not in the digital age, but before the digital age, up
Sure.
till the early 90s, we still find order forms that, people could order the film, show it in the classroom. It'll have information like the age group that it's appropriate to show, a little bit about what each film is about. But that's as far as I understand it. I don't think they were shown in theaters per se, but it was more sort of a grassroots, if you will, a sort of effort to get these films out to people in different sort of buckets and groups related to the Sierra Club, or even organizations that were not Sierra Club, but were sort of adjacent or allies of the club. And so that's kind of how these films would get out there.
And I love the idea of distributing them, or that schools were renting them, so like younger minds being able to bring that information home to their parents, who maybe it's not a household that was invested in conservation, but to, really radicalize the youth basically towards preservation. And yeah, it's a beautiful thought. I'm really interested to know as well, like what is the relationship historically and today between the Sierra Club and the national park system? Like how do they interact? I mean, I would just like to know a bit more, I guess, about.
Yeah, I mean they interact in a lot of different ways depending on the region, the chapter. Each chapter is a bit autonomous in what they can prioritize, what issues are important to them locally. It's a big grassroots organization, so the power is really coming from the bottom up. But I can give an example of one way that our sort of library is a bit involved in the National Park Service, which is through the Yosemite Valley. We have a lodge there called the Yosemite Yosemite Conservation Heritage Center.
A lot of letters.
Yeah, I'm like, I hear the acronym, spell it out. And that was formerly the LeConte Memorial Lodge, and it was established, I believe, in I might get this wrong, 1901. So it was owned by the Sierra Club until it had, many decades. It moved at one point. There was a lot of different things going on, but it is now sort of, oh gosh, I'm not gonna get this correct, but
We don't know. It's okay.
belongs to the national park, but the Sierra Club manages it. So there is an agreement
Okay.
there of sort of a shared kind of custody. And that's in large part because the National Park Service is there. They're really the ones on the ground managing things in the park. So they're in charge of, the building, the physical building itself. But the Sierra Club, it's sort of a Yosemite headquarters for the Sierra Club in some ways. And within there, the Sierra Club has a curator. There are exhibits that go on there. And in the spring and summer months, there are nightly programs that happen, educational programs around, things related to the park or nature, perhaps some reminiscence of the former Sierra Club, bigwigs like John Muir, and sort of the ways that they interpret the world versus how we're looking at these areas now. So I think it always depends on how the region or the chapter can find some way to engage with the park, but it is sadly a lot less friendly now than it used to be. And I'm not sure how much involvement the certain groups and chapters are looking to have with the national park. For instance, our exhibit in the YCHC Lodge has to be changed because there's language in there that the federal government does not agree with. And so there's some contention there around, well, who censoring, but also if it's our exhibit, it's our lodge, but we are under the management of the federal government. How does that quite work? So that I can speak to just our experiences, but I'm sure in other states and other places there are sort of less visible things going on, collaborations or conflicts, whatever, with the National Park Service.
Okay, thank you. I was just interested because you would think there have to be kind of intrinsically linked just by necessity. And then I just had sort of honestly, I guess, kind of a technical question about the films. Who is narrating them? Like, is it Brower? Sorry, was that the name? Yeah.
No, it's not Brower, although he is in the Grand Canyon film and he does show up in some of the other films.
Okay.
I don't remember the person's name offhand. It is in
I really just
the
wanted to know if it
records.
was Brower, but I was wondering, yeah, if they were like significant people within the organization. Although it sounds like with the Redwoods, it was a local person who had been a logger, from what I could understand. Just
Yeah,
like
and
a very powerful person to engage to narrate a work like that, who had been part of the destruction and had turned the corner.
yeah, and a lot of these films have sort of counterparts in the exhibit format series books that Brower was also very um, he kind of spearheaded this with his editing and his publishing background. And they're these beautiful, big coffee table books that will be on a specific region a lot of the time. And they'll have these gorgeous color photographs and some text, some very light text, kind of doing something similar to what the films do, sort of
Right.
sprinkling a little poetics in there, but also really engaging people visually around these areas. And that was the goal, was to get people there without them physically having to be there and becoming, advocates of protecting these areas. So the films would be produced, but there would be these other elements kind of working in conjunction with them, whether it be articles in the Sierra Club Bulletin. Um, and so a lot of the same names will pop up. The photographers who had work in the exhibit format series books might be involved in the films, and sort of that kind of cross pollination of minds there. So they're wonderful to someday do some panel or some talk with the films in conjunction with the books, although I don't know how many of those are digitized at this point, but we do have them in the library. They're there upon request for patrons.
It must be very tempting to just spend your days browsing through all these, yeah, beautiful books and works, and what a collection. And I guess I would really like to ask, what are the best ways to support the Sierra Club in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, first I would say, find out where your local chapter is. If you're in the Bay Area, it's the San Francisco Bay chapter. I'm up in Solano County, so I'm part of the Redwoods chapter, and just figure out first which chapter would you belong to. And that's a great way to get involved because these chapters really need folks to advocate locally for things that are going on. Another great way is to donate financially if you can to the Sierra Club because things have been rough the last few years with what's going on nationally. And so a lot of nonprofits are hurting right now. And so we can only do this work if folks can donate either financially or in a lot of ways volunteering, volunteering at the chapter level. We also, from time to time, have volunteers in the library. That's a little bit more historically minded, if that's kind of the brain that you have. But if you see something going on in your community and you don't agree with it, absolutely get involved. It doesn't need to be with the Sierra Club. There's plenty of other wonderful groups doing great work out there, but that's sort of the first step, I think, is to just volunteer to do something, volunteer to, go on a local walk with your chapter and find out who's involved there. Just start meeting friends, and that's something that the club really was strong with in its early days, especially. It was a club, so folks would get together. They would go on these trips to the Sierra Nevada, and then that expanded out to other parts of the country later on. They would get together, once a month, once a week for a local walk, up Mount Tam or through, the Oakland Hills or all these other various areas. And then they just kind of started to get to know each other. And a lot of the sort of powerhouses of the movement, that's how they came up, was just kind of locally getting to know one another. And so the Sierra Club has always had that sort of clubbiness to it of, people getting together for like-minded activities. But then there's also been this conservation side that's evolved over the years to include more than conservation. Um, and I think those two things kind of go hand in hand, because when you see the humanity in people and you're out there witnessing, things that are going on in your community, there's an activating quality to that, it's how you get connected into change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, human interaction. There's so much reporting today about loneliness, a loneliness epidemic. I think we see it all around us. But I mean, going for a walk with people you don't know and talking to them about their lives seems like a fantastic remedy to that. While
Absolutely.
the environment we all live in.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you're not like a super wild outdoors person, like
Yeah.
I don't river raft, I'd love to, but that's
Right.
not a
Sure, but yeah.
but like walking, I love going to like, the redwoods that are available out here and just spending time in the sort of mystical atmosphere that, we don't see as city dwellers very often. So even just getting out to these sort of beautiful, wildish places, nature, it really does have a positive effect on the way that we interact with the world and the way that we feel health-wise, mentally, all of these things, wonderful benefits.
There's no negative, there's only positives, and we can't say that much about the world we're living in right now.
Exactly.
That seems like a great point to finish up, Joanna. I want to thank you again on this Earth Day. Wish you a happy Earth Day. Thank you for sharing these incredible films with us and sharing the URLs so that we can watch more. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Earth Day. And thank you everyone in attendance for attending and being here with us today. The next Online with SFFP will take place on Friday, May 15th, and will be presented by none other than SFFP founder and board president Rob Byrne. Rob will be presenting on the incredible history of glass projection slides. You can register for this event on our website, filmpreserve.org/events. So with that, I would like to thank you all. Happy Earth Day, and go outside today. Touch some grass, as the young folks say.